Good day, everyone. My name is Roxanne Siluxin from BSED Math. Today, I am going to discuss the first six subtopics of the Chapter 13 entitled Freedom and Independence 1898 to 1899. The circumstances surrounding the declaration of Philippine independence, its constitution and form of government were certainly not ideal, so the Filipino forces could have been chosen a better timing. On August 13, 1898, the U.S. takeover of Intramuros to the exclusion of the Filipino forces who had earlier laid siege to the city, muddled the issue of who were the real victors of the battle. Was it the Americans or the Filipinos that were responsible for the Spaniards' surrender? General Emilio Aguinaldo, together with Apolinario Mabini, were faced with the difficult task of uniting the educated and rich with a majority who were poor, uneducated, under a form of government worthy of international respect and recognition. In this, they had to do in just a short time with the impending U.S. occupation of the country. So the elite dominated the Congress in Malolos and succeeded in crafting and approving a constitution and government in the hands of an oligarchy of the educated. Aguinaldo and Mabini, despite their opposition, failed and in the end found themselves behind the both of the premature Republic of the Philippines that was controlled by the elite. The dictatorial government. So when Aguinaldo returned to the Philippines, he realized that it was time to organize a government. So Emilio Aguinaldo asked Mariano Ponce to prepare a constitution that provide a republican form of government. And Aguinaldo was to establish a dictatorial form of government because such a government was very effective in a critical period such as what the country was experiencing. The condition in the Philippines were serious. There were many problems that needed to be addressed like financing a new government, food for the people, reconstruction of destroyed buildings and houses, including in this are roads and bridges, and many other concerns that would require honesty, dedication, and competence on the part of the chief executive. And because Aguinaldo was convinced that a dictatorial form of government was more efficient than a republican government in a time of crisis, so Aguinaldo asked Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista. So Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista was a lawyer of good standing. So he asked him to prepare the machinery for the establishment of the dictatorial government. On May 24, 1898, Aguinaldo formally established the dictatorial government to be admonished by decrees promulgated under many Aguinaldo's sole responsibility. This upon the advice of Bautista. So Aguinaldo made it clear that this form of government was temporary in nature and that in the future the people may modify it. Next is Mabini enters the scene. While Aguinaldo was in Hong Kong, he was in the company of many wise men. They were all patriotic men of experience. So before Aguinaldo left for the Philippines, Felipe Agoncillo, who had left for the Philippines in 1895 because some friars were after him, gave him some good advice. So by the way, Felipe Agoncillo was the Filipino lawyer representative to the negotiations in Paris that led to the Treaty of Paris. And that Agoncillo advised Aguinaldo to look for a certain Apolinario Mabini of Tanawan, Batangas. It because Aguinaldo would need the services of dedicated and patriotic men. So Apolinario Mabini, according to the informant, a bright young man who could be relied upon in times of crisis. So Aguinaldo knew that Mabini was resting in Los Baños, Laguna. So he ordered his men to fetch Mabini and bring him to Kawit Cavite. Mabini was carried in a hammock from Los Baños, Laguna to Kawit Cavite. So it was 2 towns from Laguna to Cavite. So of course, it was a long and difficult journey considering that there were no good roads between the 2 towns. So imagine how difficult it was, no? So when Mabini was brought before Aguinaldo in his office, the general looked at the man before him. Mabini was thin and obviously sick, a sickness which he constructed since birth. But despite his sickly appearance, Aguinaldo still noted that there was a that there was something in the eyes of Mabini that he couldn't explain. There was a long silence. Aguinaldo thought that he must have made a mistake in sending for the man, that Mabini was useless for all practical purposes. But then, Aguinaldo heard Mabini's voice for the very first time. Mabini's voice was firm, had deep conviction, and had courage. And because of that, Aguinaldo's doubt was vanished. He smiled and reached for Mabini's right hand, and that meeting was the beginning of their friendship that unfortunately lasted for only 1 year. So next is the Declaration of Independence. With a Filipino government now in operation, Aguinaldo thought that it would be the best to declare the independence of the country, since he believed that the people would work hard to protect that independence and thus contribute to the stability of the newly established government. But Apolinario Mabini objected. In this time, Mabini was not yet Aguinaldo's official advisor. He said that the more important thing to do was to reorganize the government first, to make it popularly based and thus more stable than a dictatorial government. In this way, the foreign countries would know that the rebel government was secure. However, Aguinaldo stood his ground and insisted on the proclamation of Philippine independence. On June 5, Aguinaldo ordered that June 12 be set aside for the proclamation of independence. To make the event memorable, Aguinaldo asked Julian Filipi. So Julian Filipi was a musician from Cavite. He asked him to compose a march which would be played during the Independence Day ceremonies. So the music was entitled Marcha Filipina Magdalo. Upon hearing this music, Aguinaldo decided to make it the official march of the Philippines. Aguinaldo proclaimed the independence of the Philippines from the window of his home in Kawit, Cavite on June 12. So the Philippine flag, designed by Aguinaldo and sewn in Hong Kong by Mrs. Marcela Agoncillo, with the help of Delfina Herbosa and Lorenza Agoncillo, and was officially hoisted for the first time to the accompaniment of the Marcha Filipina. So the act of the Declaration of Independence was prepared and read in Spanish by Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista. This was his last official act. So after June 12, he faded from the picture and Mabini stepped in as Aguinaldo's topmost advisor. So the Declaration of Independence was signed by 98 people. Colonel L. M. Johnson, an American Army officer, attended the ceremonies on Dewey's behalf, since Dewey declined the invitation to the ceremonies. Next is local government reorganized. Mabini began playing a very important role in the Filipino government after the Declaration of Independence on June 12, 1898. Since he already an advisor of Aguinaldo, he set to work immediately by preparing a decree for Aguinaldo's signature, in which it was stated that the first duty of the government is to interpret faithfully the will of the people. Mabini felt that the people who would surround Aguinaldo should be close to the people so that Aguinaldo would their needs at once. Therefore, Mabini prepared the decree of June 18, which provided for the reorganization of the government in provinces that were already taken from the Spaniards. The right to vote was given to men of high moral character and good standing in his community, and they were the ones who would elect also the town head, cabeza of each barrio, and the delegate for police and internal order, and the delegate for justice and civil registry, and the delegate for taxes and property. So all these and the town and barrio chiefs constituted the popular assembly. So the town chief acted as president of the assembly, while the cabeza of the town as the vice president, and the delegate for justice and the civil registry as the secretary. So Mabini thought that there should be a revolutionary congress. So to prepare for this, he included in the June 18 decree a provision stating that each province should elect its delegates. So the main function of it was to propose measures concerning the preservation of internal order and external security of these islands. So next is the administration of justice. So, in a supplementary decree of June 20, Mabini provided for the administration of justice in areas under the Filipino government. So, for the time being, the Spanish Penal Code was adopted except for these provisions, which were contrary to the decrees of the Filipino government. So, under the setup, the town chief was automatically assigned as the town judge. So for example, in criminal cases, the papers relating to a case had to be sent to the provincial council. This in turn would order the accused to appear before the provincial council trial. So another example, in civil cases, the decision were made by the popular council. So all decisions were to be considered temporary and may be changed by a court of higher jurisdiction. So the last subtopic that I'll be discussing is the revolutionary government. So upon the advice of Mabini, on June 23, Aguinaldo changed the form of government from dictatorial to revolutionary. So from this time on, the name of the government was revolutionary government. So the decree prepared by Mabini changed the title of the chief of state from dictator to president. So to help the president in his duties, four departments were created. So the first one are the Department of Foreign Affairs, Navy, and Commerce. The second one are the Department of War and Public Works. The third are the Department of Police and Internal Order, Justice, Education, and Hygiene. And the fourth one are the Department of Finance, Agriculture, and Manufacturing Industry. So the June 23 decree also provided for the creation of Congress. Provinces which could not hold any election for the delegates to Congress because they were still under the Spaniards would be represented by appointive delegates to Congress. So the Congress was not a law-making but an advisory one. So it would advise the president on matters pertaining to the organization of the Revolutionary Army and the raising of funds to support it. not just the vague statement, the welfare of the country. So, okay, this is the end of my discussion. Hopefully, you've learned something from everything I discussed. So, the remaining subtopics of this lesson will be discussed by Miss Babor.